My name is Peyton Carver. I stood frozen in the doorway of the private dining room on my 35th birthday, my left eye swollen completely shut, the purple-black bruise spreading across half my face like a storm cloud. Dried blood clung to my eyebrow, mascara streaked down my cheeks in dark lines. 50 people stared in dead silence, champagne glasses frozen halfway to their lips. My parents had their arms around me like we were posing for the perfect family photo. They were smiling. Actually smiling. I know what you're all thinking. My father announced, voice loud and proud. Our daughter had a little accident. Actually, her sisters finally taught her some respect. Behind us, my older sisters barely hid their laughter, exchanging glances that said they'd done something worth celebrating. Then a small hand grabbed mine. My 9-year-old nephew, trembling, looked up at me. "I'm sorry, Aunt Peyton. Grandma told me to say you fell, but I saw them do it this morning." Before anyone could react, a voice cut through the room from the back. "She's not the only one who grew up with those bruises." Every head turned. My twin sister stepped forward, phone already raised, screen glowing. And outside the glass doors, red and blue lights started flashing. If you've ever walked into a room full of people and realized your own family just humiliated you in front of everyone, drop your city or state in the comments. Hit subscribe, you're gonna want to hear what happened next. 3 days earlier, I was still convincing myself this birthday would be different. I sat at the kitchen island in the house I'd never been allowed to leave, surrounded by color-coded spreadsheets for a party I didn't even want. Seating charts, dietary restrictions, flower arrangements. Every detail had to be flawless because perfection was the only armor I had left. Warren checked my personal bank account every Sunday night like clockwork. He still had the login from when I was 19 and couldn't be trusted with money. Lydia kept my passport, birth certificate, and social security card locked in the safe behind the framed family portrait in their bedroom, the one where we're all smiling like nothing was wrong. My older sisters had stopped bothering with the old insults about dusty shelves or dry chicken. They had moved on to bigger things. Mallory forwarded herself admin access to my work email 6 months ago. Tatum sat on the couch with her laptop and casually deleted coffee invitations from colleagues. We don't need people asking questions. Peyton, if I dared change the password, Warren simply called the bank and had it reset. I was 34 years old and still needed permission to spend the salary I earned. The trust fund was the last chain. My grandfather had set it up decades ago with an ironclad rule-full control transferred automatically to me on my 35th birthday. No signatures required. No approval needed. Just a date on the calendar. 3 more days. I refreshed the banking app for the 100th time that morning, watching the countdown timer the private wealth manager had added as a courtesy. 72 hours until the money became legally mine and they could never threaten to cut me off again. My hands shook so badly I could barely hold the coffee mug. Sleep had been a stranger for weeks. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard Lydia's voice from when I was 22, telling me I would never survive without them. I had tried once. Packed a single bag at 3 in the morning, made it as far as the driveway before Warren's headlights pinned me in place. I came back inside. I always came back. Mallory walked in without knocking. She never knocked anymore. Dropped her designer bag on the counter and opened my laptop. "Let's see who you've been talking to this week." She scrolled through my inbox like it was her own. "This woman from the PTA wants to carpool, deleted. We don't do carpools." Tatum followed 5 minutes later, phone already filming. "Smile, little sister." Content for the family Instagram. Caption, "Peyton planning the party of the year." She zoomed in on my face. "You look tired. Maybe ease up on the late-night scrolling." I said nothing. 3 more days. Warren appeared in the doorway. Tie perfectly knotted, reading glasses low on his nose. The country club confirmed the private room. 50 guests. "Don't make me regret letting you handle this." He didn't wait for an answer. He never did. Lydia swept in last, holding the leather-bound planner she'd used to schedule my entire life. "We're wearing navy," she announced. "Family color. I've already had your dress altered. Try not to gain any weight before Saturday." I stared at the spreadsheet until the numbers blurred. The cursor blinked in the cell marked "Final Payment Due." I hovered over the send button, heart pounding in my throat. One click, and the venue was locked in. One click, and there was no backing out. I clicked. The confirmation email arrived instantly. I closed the laptop before any of them could see the second message underneath the one from the trust department, time-stamped for midnight on my birthday, automatic distribution scheduled. No further action required. 72 hours. I stood up, knees unsteady, and carried my mug to the sink. My reflection in the window looked like a stranger, hollow cheeks, dark circles no concealer could hide anymore. For the first time in years, I didn't look away. 3 more days and the house, the rules, the constant watching it would all still be here. But the money wouldn't be theirs anymore. And maybe, just maybe, that would finally be enough to make me leave. 2 nights before the party, they decided to remind me who still owned me. The dining room smelled of rosemary and roasted lamb, the same meal served every time they wanted to feel like the perfect family. I had spent the afternoon setting the table with the good china, polishing silver, until it caught the chandelier light, arranging the napkins into perfect fans. Anything to keep my hands busy and my mind quiet. Mallory arrived first, carrying a thick manila folder instead of the usual bottle of wine. She dropped it on the table with a deliberate thud, the sound sharp against the crystal. "Since we're all together," she said, voice sugary, "I thought we could take a little trip down memory lane." She flipped the folder open. Inside were documents I hadn't seen in 15 years. Disciplinary letters from college, emails to the dean, a withdrawal form with my shaky signature, all stamped with the university seal. Warren raised an eyebrow, amused. Lydia leaned forward, lips curled in that half-smile she wore when someone else did the dirty work. Mallory pulled out the first letter and read aloud, slow and theatrical. "Miss Carver has been placed on probationary status due to repeated absences and failure to maintain academic progress. Her family has been notified." Tatum snorted. "You almost got kicked out sophomore year." Remember, I remembered. I had missed 3 weeks of classes because Lydia decided I needed to accompany her to Aspen for a healing retreat, after I dared to apply for an off-campus apartment. When I came back, I was drowning. They never let me forget it. Mallory turned the page. And here's the best part. Dad had to donate $25,000 to the new library wing to make this disappear. She looked at Warren with mock adoration. Such a generous father. Warren shrugged, cutting into his lamb. "Some investments pay off." Lydia reached over and patted my hand, her rings cold against my skin. "We only wanted what was best for you, Peyton. You were always so ungrateful." I stared at my plate. The meat suddenly looked gray. My fork trembled as I set it down. Mallory wasn't finished. She slid a photograph across the table, me at 21, eyes red from crying, standing outside the registrar's office. Someone had caught the exact moment I realized I wasn't leaving. Tatum leaned in. "You cried for days, locked yourself in your room like a child. We had to cancel our cruise because of the drama." I opened my mouth, closed it, then opened it again. "That wasn't drama," I said, voice barely above a whisper. "You wouldn't let me breathe." Silence fell like a blade. Warren set his knife down with deliberate calm. "Excuse me," I swallowed. My heart hammered so hard I could feel it in my teeth. I said, "You wouldn't let me breathe." Lydia laughed, sharp and brittle. Listen to her. 34 years old and still playing the victim. Mallory's eyes narrowed. "Careful, Peyton. Some things don't stay buried just because you want them to." I looked at each of them, really looked. Warren's jaw tight with warning, Lydia's fingers white around her wine glass, Mallory smirking like she'd already won, Tatum recording the whole thing on her phone, probably for later ammunition. Something inside me snapped, not loud, not dramatic, just a quiet, clean break. I pushed my chair back. The legs scraped against the hardwood loud in the stunned silence. "I'm not hungry," I said. Warren's voice stopped me at the door. "Sit down." I didn't. I walked out of the dining room past the family portraits lining the hallway past the locked study where Lydia kept my documents. My legs carried me upstairs on autopilot. I shut my bedroom door, turned the lock for the first time in years, and stood there shaking. Then I did something I hadn't done since I was 16. I pressed my face into the pillow and screamed until my throat burned. When it was over, I lay on my back staring at the ceiling, chest heaving. The house was silent below, no footsteps, no shouting. Just the weight of what I'd done settling over me like a shroud. I had spoken back. For the first time in my adult life, I had spoken back. And nothing had fallen apart. Yet. The day before my birthday, they made sure I wouldn't forget the price of speaking up. I was in the gift wrapping room, the one Lydia had converted from a guest bedroom, surrounded by rolls of navy paper and silver ribbon that matched the family dress code. Warren's present sat in the center of the table, a limited edition watch I had quietly ordered 6 weeks earlier using the last of my own savings. The kind of gift that looked generous but cost me 2 months of secretly skipped lunches. Tatum walked in without knocking, phone in one hand, iced coffee in the other. She surveyed the half-wrapped box like a building inspector. Still playing the dutiful daughter. She set her cup down on the antique side table, leaving a wet ring. I knew I would be blamed for later. Cute. I kept folding the paper, creasing the edges with the bone folder, the way Lydia taught me when I was 12. My hands were steady now. After last night, something had shifted. I wasn't sure what it was yet, but it felt dangerously close to power. Tatum pulled out the chair opposite me and sat. "You know the money hits your account tomorrow, right?" I didn't look up. "I'm aware." She leaned forward. "So here's the thing. You get the trust fund, you decide to finally grow a spine and leave, and suddenly, we're the villains who tortured poor little Peyton for 35 years. Her voice dripped acid. "That's not the story that gets told." I tied the ribbon, pulled it tight. "What story do you want told, Tatum?" She smiled, the same smile she used in front of cameras at charity galas. Then she opened her phone, turned the screen toward me. Old photographs. Dozens of them. Me at 16, cheek swollen, ice pack pressed to my face. Me at 18, wrist in a brace after falling down the stairs. Me at 21, the night I tried to leave for good, eyes vacant in the police station lighting after Warren convinced the officer it was just a family disagreement. "These are just the highlights," she said, scrolling slowly. "I have hundreds. Different angles, timestamps, medical reports I sweet-talked out of the clinic. All ready to go live the second you step out of line." My fingers stilled on the bow. "Caption ideas," she continued, "are endless. Our difficult child. When mental health issues tear families apart. Maybe throw in a GoFundMe for the stress you've caused, Mom. People eat that up." I finally met her eyes. "You'd destroy your own reputation to keep me quiet." "Please," she laughed. "The narrative will be that we tried everything to help you. Therapy. Private doctors. We're the tragic heroes. You're the ungrateful daughter who abandoned her aging parents the moment she got money. By the time I'm done, no one will rent you an apartment, let alone believe a word you say." Lydia appeared in the doorway, silent, watching. She had heard every word. She always did. Tatum kept going. "One post. That's all it takes. Your students' parents will see it. Your principal. Future employers. You think anyone hires a teacher with a history like that?" I stared at the watch box, the perfect corners I had spent 20 minutes perfecting. My voice came out flat. "You're scared." Tatum's smile faltered for half a second. "You're terrified," I said. "Because tomorrow the money is mine and you can't threaten to take it away anymore. You can't threaten to throw me out. You can't control where I go or who I see. So now you're scrambling for new leverage." Lydia stepped fully into the room. Peyton. I ignored her, kept my eyes on Tatum. Those photos prove you hurt me, not the other way around. Tatum recovered, shrugged. Context is everything, and we own the context. Lydia moved closer, voice soft, dangerous. Your sister is protecting the family image, something you've never understood. Stop being dramatic. I looked at her then. Really looked. The woman who had convinced doctors I was unstable, who had smiled at parent-teacher conferences while I sat in the car with a split lip. The woman who still slept soundly every night knowing exactly where my passport was. I stood up slowly. No, I said. The word hung in the air. Lydia's eyes narrowed. What did you say? I said no. Post the pictures. Tell whatever story you want. Tomorrow the money is mine and I will never set foot in this house again. You can't stop me. Tatum lunged across the table, grabbing my wrist hard enough to bruise. You don't get to walk away and leave us holding the mess you made of this family. I didn't pull away. I leaned in until we were inches apart. The mess, I whispered, was never mine. For the first time in my life, she let go first. I walked out of the gift room, past Lydia's stunned silence, down the hallway, lined with lies framed as memories. My wrist throbbed where Tatum had gripped it, but I didn't stop. I didn't look back. Tomorrow couldn't come soon enough. The morning of my 35th birthday, everything they had built for 35 years finally cracked. I woke to the soft vibration of my phone on the nightstand. The screen lit up with a single notification from the private banking app I hadn't been allowed to open alone in over a decade. Transfer complete. Account now solely in the name of Peyton Carver. Balance $4,720. Effective 12:01 a.m. I stared at the numbers until they blurred. Then I smiled. A real one. The first in longer than I could remember. I slipped out of bed, threw on jeans and the oldest sweater I owned, something Lydia had thrown out years ago, and I'd rescued from the donation pile, and walked downstairs barefoot. The house was quiet. Too quiet. Warren was already in the kitchen, tie-knotted, coffee in hand, staring at his own phone like it had betrayed him. Lydia stood beside him, face drained of color, clutching the counter. They hadn't noticed me yet. It's gone, Warren said, voice hollow. All of it. Transferred at midnight. She has full control. Lydia's knuckles went white. Call the lawyer. He says it's ironclad. Her grandfather made sure no one could touch it after 35. Not even us. I leaned against the doorframe. Good morning. They spun around. Warren's eyes narrowed. Lydia's mouth opened, closed, opened again. I held up my phone so they could see the balance. Looks like the leash just snapped. Warren recovered first. He set his cup down with deliberate calm. We need to talk. Mallory and Tatum arrived 20 minutes later, summoned by frantic texts. They stormed in, still in workout clothes, faces flushed from spin class. The four of them formed a semicircle in the living room like a tribunal. Warren spoke first, voice smooth, the one he used with business partners. Obviously, this is a big change. Emotions are high, but we're family. We handle things together. He slid a document across the coffee table. A voluntary partial disclaimer of inheritance. It would redirect half the trust fund into a new family foundation with them as trustees naturally. All you have to do is sign, Lydia added, soft, almost pleading, for harmony, for appearances. You don't want people thinking you abandoned your parents the moment you got money. Mallory crossed her arms. Be reasonable, Peyton. Tatum just glared. I picked up the pen, turned it over in my fingers, then set it down. No. The word landed like a gunshot. Warren's mask slipped. Excuse me, I said no. The money is mine. Legally, permanently. And I'm not giving any of it back. Lydia stepped forward. After everything we've done for you, everything you've done. My voice rose before I could stop it. You mean locking my passport in a safe? monitoring every dollar I spent, dragging me back every time I tried to leave. That's what you've done. Mallory started forward. Tatum grabbed her arm, but her own face was twisted with rage. Warren's hand moved faster than I expected. The slap cracked across my cheek, sharp and deafening. My head snapped to the side, ear ringing. I tasted blood. Before I could straighten, Tatum shoved me hard in the chest. I stumbled backward, heel catching the corner of the glass coffee table. My temple hit the edge with a sickening thud. Pain exploded white hot. I slid to the floor, hand pressed to my left eye as warmth trickled down my face. For a moment, no one moved. Then Lydia whispered, "Oh God, look at her face." Warren's breathing was ragged. "Get up. Clean yourself. We have the party in 4 hours." I pushed myself to sitting. Blood dripped onto the marble, dark and unmistakable. Mallory sounded almost panicked. "That's going to bruise. Badly." Tatum knelt, voice shaking. "Concealer won't cover this." "What do we do?" Warren towered over me. "You will put on the navy dress. You will smile. You will tell anyone who asks that you walked into a cabinet. No one will believe anything else." I laughed. It came out wet and broken. "You still think you can control the story?" I pulled my phone from my pocket with bloody fingers, angled the camera, and took 3 clear photos of my face, eye already swelling shut, blood drying in a line from temple to jaw. I attached them to a message. To Hadley. Subject: "It happened. Come now." Sent. 30 seconds later. On my way. Police notified. Hold on. I looked up at the 4 of them staring down at me like I was a bomb about to go off. "Change of plans," I said quietly. "I'm still going to that party." Warren relaxed a fraction. "Good girl." I smiled with split lips. "But not with you." The drive to the restaurant was the longest 20 minutes of my life. Warren gripped the wheel so hard his knuckles blanched. Lydia sat beside him, twisting her pearls until the strand threatened to snap. In the back seat, Mallory angled her phone, applying a filter that softened the purple blooming across my cheekbone, while Tatum typed furiously. "Birthday girl ready to celebrate." Tatum read aloud, adding heart emojis. "Post." I said nothing. My fingers stayed locked around my phone thumb, hovering over the screen that still showed Hadley's last message, ETA 12 minutes. Officers with me. We pulled up to the country club entrance. Valets swarmed. Warren cut the engine and turned, voice low and lethal. "You will smile. You will say you walked into a cabinet reaching for a glass. One wrong word and every penny you just inherited disappears into legal fees you'll never outrun." Understood. I nodded once. They flanked me like guards. Mallory on my left, Tatum on my right, each gripping an elbow hard enough to bruise again. Warren's hand rested possessively on the small of my back as he steered me through the double doors into the private dining room. 50 faces turned at once. The silence hit like a physical force. Forks froze halfway to mouths. A champagne flute slipped from someone's hand and shattered on the hardwood. I felt every stare land on my face, the swollen eye now fully shut, the dark crescent spreading to my temple. The thin line of dried blood I hadn't been allowed to wash off. Warren's smile never wavered. He raised his glass. "Thank you all for coming to celebrate our daughter's 35th. She's had a little accident this morning, clumsy as ever, but nothing keeps a Carver down." A nervous ripple of laughter tried to start, then died. That was when Landon broke. Mallory's 9-year-old had been sitting quietly at the children's table near the front, hands clenched in his lap since we arrived. Now he shot to his feet, chair scraping loud in the hush. "Stop lying." His voice cracked high and desperate. "I saw you hurt her. This morning, all of you." Mallory lunged for him. "Landon, sit." "No." He twisted away, tears streaming. "Grandpa hit her and Aunt Tatum pushed her into the table and there was blood, and you told me to say she fell, but she didn't." Gasps rippled outward. Phones came up. Warren's grip on my arm turned crushing. He's confused. The main doors opened again. My twin sister Hadley walked in first hair, wind blown from the drive-eyes locked on me. Behind her came two plainclothes detectives' badges already visible at their belts. Harlan and Vivian Brooks followed Harlan carrying a thick accordion folder pressed to his chest like armor. Hadley didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. She's not the only one, she said clearly loud enough for every microphone now pointed our way. And today, it ends. She held up her phone and pressed play. Lydia's voice, tinny but unmistakable, filled the room. Recorded when we were 16. We did what we had to do to keep her in line. Some children only learn one way. Another clip. Warren, same year. If she ever tries to leave again, we'll make sure no one believes a word she says. The color drained from every face that belonged to my family. Hadley stopped the recording. I have hours of this. Medical reports, photographs, witness statements from neighbors who heard the fights. The officers outside have warrants in process. This isn't a discussion anymore. Warren tried to step forward. One of the detectives moved to block him. Lydia's hand flew to her throat. You can't, I can, Hadley cut in. And I am. Landon ran to me, then wrapping his small arms around my waist, sobbing into my sweater. I held him with the arm that wasn't pinned by Mallory's suddenly slack grip. Harlan Brooks stepped beside Hadley and opened the folder. Inside were documents stacked inches thick, dated, notarized, devastating. We've been waiting for this day since Peyton showed up on our doorstep at 16 with a broken wrist and nowhere else to go, he said quietly. Everything is here. A woman near the front whispered, "Oh my God," loud enough for her phone to catch it. Tatum's face crumpled. Mallory looked around wildly for an exit that wasn't there. Warren stared at me, something breaking behind his eyes. I met his gaze, and for the first time in 35 years didn't look away. The moment the officers asked Warren to step aside, the entire room turned. One detective raised a hand. Everyone stay where you are. This is now an active scene. Phones were already out. Someone had started live streaming. The red recording dots looked like dozens of angry eyes. The taller officer moved toward Mallory and Tatum. Hands where I can see them. Mallory laughed high and brittle. This is ridiculous. She's our sister. The detective didn't smile. He pointed to the fresh scratch marks on my forearm, 4 parallel lines still beaded with blood. Those match the pattern on your fingernails, ma'am. Tatum's face went slack. The officer turned her gently but firmly, metal cuffs clicking into place. Mallory tried to back away and bumped into a table, knocking over a centerpiece. Within seconds, both sisters were secured, wrists behind their backs, staring at the floor. Warren's voice cracked across the room. This is a family matter. You have no right. A man in a navy suit near the front stood up. Tom Harrington, Warren's biggest real estate partner for 20 years. He looked sick. Not anymore, he said quietly. Then louder to the officers. Do what you need to do. People started moving. Chairs scraped. Purses were grabbed. A woman I recognized from the club charity board whispered, "I can't be here," and hurried toward the exit. Another couple simply walked out without a word. The room emptied in waves, some filming as they left, others avoiding eye contact entirely. The second detective knelt beside me, voice calm. "Ma'am, we need photos of the injuries for evidence. Are you able to stand?" I nodded. He helped me up. Flash after flash went off as he documented the damage: the swollen eye, the split skin above my eyebrow, the fingerprint bruises already forming on my upper arms where they had dragged me from the house. Harlan Brooks spoke to the lead officer, voice low but clear. We've been documenting since she was 16. Medical records from 3 different ER visits, photographs, sworn statements from neighbors who heard the yelling through open windows. It's all in there. He tapped the thick envelope still tucked under his arm. The officer took it, flipped through quickly, eyebrows rising. This is extensive. Vivian stood nearby, eyes shining but steady. She reached for my free hand and squeezed once. Lydia was crying now, silent tears cutting tracks through her perfect makeup. "You're destroying us," she whispered. "After everything we gave you." Warren tried one last time, stepping toward me. The detective blocked him instantly. "Sir, back away." He stopped, hands raised, but his eyes found mine. For the first time, I saw fear in them. Real fear. I didn't feel triumph. I didn't feel vindication. I just felt empty. Like a house that had finally been unlocked after decades and all the windows left open so the air could move again. Paramedics arrived minutes later. They sat me on a stretcher in the lobby while guests continued to stream past, some pausing to ask if I was okay, others pretending not to see. A cold pack was pressed to my temple. Someone draped a blanket over my shoulders. Hadley never left my side. She held my hand the entire time, thumb tracing small circles on my knuckles, the way she did when we were kids hiding under the covers during thunderstorms. As they wheeled me toward the ambulance, Landon broke free from a club employee and ran over. His face was blotchy from crying. "I'm sorry, Aunt Peyton," he choked out. "I didn't want to lie." I reached down and touched his hair. "You told the truth. That's the bravest thing anyone did today." They lifted me into the ambulance. Hadley climbed in after still holding on. The doors closed. Sirens stayed off. We pulled away from the club slowly, the building shrinking in the rear window until it was just another mansion on a hill. I leaned my head against the padding, eyes closed, and for the first time in 35 years I breathed without waiting for someone to tell me to stop. 6 months later, I woke up in my own apartment without checking the locks 3 times. Sunlight poured through the east window of the little 2-bedroom I bought in a quiet neighborhood 20 miles from the house I grew up in. No gates, no security cameras pointed at the front door. Just birds and the occasional dog walker. The permanent restraining orders were granted in under 30 days. Mallory and Tatum pleaded to reduce charges, 3 years probation, 200 hours of community service each, and mandatory anger management courses twice a week. Warren and Lydia's names were on the same paperwork, 500 yards, no contact, no exceptions. Carver Development lost 70% of its pending contracts in the weeks that followed. Clients didn't want their names anywhere near the headlines. The club membership was quietly revoked. Invitations stopped arriving. The family that once owned half the skyline suddenly couldn't get a table at their favorite steakhouse. I used a portion of the trust to buy this place outright. No mortgage, no co-signers, no one to answer to. The rest went into a savings account that only I can touch. I still teach 3rd grade. Different district, new school, fresh faces. The principal knew my story before she hired me. She said courage like mine belonged in front of children. Some nights I still jerk awake at a slammed cabinet or a raised voice on TV. It took 4 solid months before I stopped flinching when a man walked too close behind me in the grocery store. My therapist calls it normal. I call it proof the scars are real even when they don't show. Every Tuesday evening, I drive to the community center downtown and sit in a circle of folding chairs with women who look the way I used to. Tired eyes, careful smiles, shoulders curved inward like they're permanently bracing for the next hit. I always say the same thing first. You're not crazy, and you're not alone. Then I listen. I share pieces when it helps. I hand out my phone number like it's nothing because now it really is nothing, just a number, not a leash. Hadley moved back to the city. She rents the apartment across the hall. Some mornings we drink coffee on my balcony and don't talk about the past at all. Some nights we do. Either way, she's there. I never forgave them. I never will. Forgiveness isn't required for healing. Distance is. People ask if I miss my family. I tell them the truth, I miss the idea of one. The reality was never mine to miss. The lesson I carry now, the one I repeat to every woman who sits across from me shaking, is simple. Your silence protects them. Your voice protects you. And the moment you decide you're worth protecting, the entire world shifts to make room for it. That's the only inheritance I ever needed.